you really nailed it for me. Again, I identify as a female, but I have no interest, never had a desire to grow my family other than with animals. But I think it's really sad when, you really nailed it for me. It's like, I really feel when I was growing up, starting my career, the people that did have children, like the women paid for it,
Yeah.
whether it is like putting your working career on hiatus or whether it is kind of eating that cost. So I'm curious, like for your dynamic, like you were saying that it was probably maybe in the best interest that you did stay home and kind of put a really good pause on your career. But I'm curious, like how did you and Steve get to that place where you're like, you know what, to your point, like we both need to grow, we both need to elevate in our careers. So, like, was that a difficult conversation to have? Because, again, for me growing up, most people that I knew that got pregnant, they didn't come back because childcare was so expensive. Like, it really didn't make sense for most people, and maybe different in Ontario to Alberta, where like most women, like their entire paycheck went to
Yeah.
childcare.
Yeah, I think another interesting thing about having kids is you kind of get this built-in like barometer or litmus test for all of your decisions because you can kind of always bring it back to what would I tell them in 30 years when they're in this situation, right? What would I tell my daughter if she was ambitious and passionate like I am and she phoned me and said, should I go back to work? I really want to, but it doesn't make sense financially. What would I tell her? It would be a no-brainer, right? It would be you get one life if you're passionate about your career, if you've studied to be where you are and you've worked hard to be there, then do it. You have to do it. There's no choice. So whenever I'm considering something like that and wondering, is this the most logical decision? I always go back to what would I tell them? And it often makes it really easy. And my husband knew what he was getting into. I always tell him, you can stay home if you want, and that ends the conversation pretty quickly.
And how funny that usually is the case. And it's like, oh, okay, weird how that has changed. Okay, good to know. Good to know.